This video is brought to you by my amazing patrons. If you want to be part of the Patreon team, please feel free to click the link down below. I want to say thank you to 2 new patrons, Doggo Portal and of course Jay Mills. Thank you so much. If you want to join, please click the link down below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have you ever been scared of the dark and what creatures it may hold? Has the darkness in a video game ever actually made you feel paranoid and generally frightened to look? Has a game ever made you break a sweat whenever you're standing within a dark room?
Do you experience feelings of dread in your base?
Get out of it! What are you doing? Well, today I want to discuss nyctophobia in gaming. And that's right, we're going back to phobias, everybody. But this time I want to at least do one of these once a month. And I want to discuss this fear and how it's used as a mechanic within gaming, and of course the psychological side to it all, and why our minds possibly cause us to fear the dark, and how gaming developers created an atmosphere that can replicate the reality of what we're scared of. So, nyctophobia is also known as scoptophobia, but not to be confused with scopophobia, the fear of being watched. They have the same similar kind of, I don't know, okay? But the fear of the dark can also be called scopophobia and of course lygophobia after the Greek word for twilight. Nyctophobia itself is a rational fear, and for the most part it's all just a part of our animal and survival instincts. It allows our senses to become way more aware whenever we're in a dark space, including our sounds and even our smells. And there is an extension to this phobia, which is the aforementioned thalassophobia, where you fear the darky depths of the ocean. And of course, as Lovecraft famously said, the oldest and strongest emotion to mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Being scared of the dark itself is an entirely rational fear, but it seems to be created and even conditioned with irrational horrors. Being conditioned from such a young age happens to everybody. There's probably a chance in your life when you was younger that you caught your parents watching a horror film, which is generally terrifying to children. Or even just as a kid you watch shows like Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark, or even episodes like SpongeBob with Nosferatu. That creeped me out when I was younger, okay? Nosferatu! When I was younger, I used to share a bunk bed and I used to often sleep on the bottom bunk. And my bed was right in front of the door, on which I would keep open of course when nighttime came around. But outside this door there was a window that illuminated the hallway that was in front of my doorway. It was like looking into a glowy portal of hell every single night, and all I could think about was that birthday scene from Signs. Looking at this doorway arch being completely empty but at the same time being illuminated by a bright white light, it sort of left me thinking what would happen if something would pass by it, very much like that scene in Signs itself. Having a vivid imagination like I did, I often saw objects like coats and even toys transforming into horrors that lurk within the shadows, which is actually a joke that Monsters Inc. even touches on itself. It makes the joke of the monster being kind and funny, yes, but it still lives in your closet and there's still an idea that there could be something there. But you know, they're only doing it to pay the bills, so you know, stop being a pussy. Come on kids, leave it out. And conditioning plays a huge part in so many different phobias, and the fear of the dark is just one that is easily developed through trauma and of course an overactive imagination. Sigmund Freud once considered that the fear itself is a manifestation of separation anxiety disorder, caused for example when a child is away from a parent and has to sleep alone in a room, making them possibly fear the room itself or at least the darkness within it. It's a phobia that can be conditioned, it's almost programmed, it's entirely rational, but is led and created by the irrational. It's one hell of a phobia, and maybe there's actually ghosts in your house. And in that case, you should call the ghost. You should call the ghost. Okay, fuck you guys. What creatures truly lurk in the darkest corners of the gaming worlds that we have explored? Well, the truth is, there are many monsters that we've come to terms with over the last years. We're even bored of zombies, ghosts, demons, extraterrestrial beings, cosmic horrors. We've seen it all, there's nothing new. But the context in which these creatures are meant to be used is entirely controlled by the devs and how the fear itself is meant to frighten us. And then it's overcome by the player being killed by the monster, or is even overcome by the player killing the monster. Not one player is the same with these types of horrors though. Someone could find amnesia cool and inspiring, while another finds it extremely frightening and disturbing to even play. Different strokes for different folks, as they say, and not many people can handle horror. A lot of people even go out of their way to avoid horror, so it makes me wonder how these people actually react to scary and even intimidating situations in games that may not even be horror themselves. But that doesn't stop there being a presence in gaming when nightfall comes and when the lights truly go out. But before we get to the scary, let's talk about the calm. Minecraft. It seems to pop up in the comment section a lot in my Nyctophobia video. I totally understand the eerie and even empty atmosphere that game world truly provides. Its whole threat comes from the darkness. We're told to keep the light on at all times or the monsters will come and get us. We find a house, play safe and wait till the morning. As a main priority, that's all we're told to do. And even in its calmest moments, Minecraft's world provides an atmosphere and a reminder that you're not always safe, and there's always something lurking within the dark, waiting for you to slip up and make a little mistake. Minecraft is seen generally as a game made for children, or at least made for younger audiences, which is totally fair. But it doesn't stop there being moments of horror. Please can someone explain to me why these sounds are in a kid's game? It's enough to freak kids out. And if games like Minecraft are warning a younger generation of horrors of the night, let's take it back to 1998. I remember playing the Rugrats Search for Raptor on the PlayStation 1. The mission where you must walk around Tommy's house at night, and it was entirely nightmare fuel. There was something quite unnerving about the dark textures and the complete nighttime atmosphere of this game, and of course you can't forget those alpha textured ghosts walking around or floating around. It's creepy, and even now when I think about looking back at it as a kid, it still gives me the chills. Or something a little bit more pathetic, I remember when I was too scared to play the Alone in the Dark on the Nintendo Game Boy Color just from the cover alone. Of course the name Alone in the Dark was enough to frighten me and the eerie image, but these small experiences were enough to feed my imagination to the darkness, and I was conditioned to believe that there were monsters there. All kid games even had it, from GameCube games like Luigi's Mansion, which had a fantastic and even dark eerie atmosphere in the dark rooms, and the dark rooms equals unsafe within that game. Ocarina of Time tells you that monsters come out after dark. These games all told me as a child that darkness was a no-go. Of course, as I grew up, I found a love for horror, and I didn't stop feeling that feeling of what could be within the dark itself, but something became very ubiquitous within gaming, and that was the jump scare. Jump scares are a commonplace in gaming, both horror and not horror this day and age. When something is usually dark or even too quiet, we often get followed by a loud scream or an unnerving image.
They all deserve to die.
We're constantly being conditioned this moment from games like the Fear franchise with Alma's Use, or even Five Nights at Freddy's, and even a sprinkle of Cry of Fear in there, to fear the dark and what it may hold. And after years of horror stories and gaming memories, it begins to rub off on people that you bet that there's going to be a jump scare within a dark void somewhere within gaming. People begin to expect these kind of scares, but they just don't know when it's going to happen, but it usually happens within these dark, quiet places. But this works in the favour of gaming, because gaming itself has a harder time of conveying the phobia of fear of the dark, because all they are in the end is pixels and code. There's no way for our imaginations to form or create objects that aren't truly there, because we're able to see a lot clearer within gaming than we are usually within the real world. If a game is meant to be pitch black and dark, the screen will just be black and you won't be able to make out any objects within it. This is why games mostly rely on the anticipation of the jump scare to create a factor of fear. But instead of wondering what is there and what could be lurking within its corners, you instead question when's it coming and how's it gonna scare me. But the theme of darkness being a threat becomes a real presence in so many genres. Action-adventure games like Far Cry Primal made sure that night itself had packs of animals that want your body for dinner, but their eyes glowing within the shadows was enough to intimidate you. Bioshock 1 brilliantly introduces you to the world of Rapture in a moment where you see a spider splicer killing a person, is surrounded by darkness and they're only stalking you within the first few minutes. The first thing we're told within Rapture is that there are natural things here, and there are things that may lurk within the darkness itself, so you must be ready to face them eventually. Red Dead Redemption 2 thrives on its themes and short stories of horror, from death himself to creepy people living within the swamps, and of course to ghosts crying of the past. This game itself has horror themes because of its darkness and because of the stories it likes to tell. Dying Light is the only zombie game that's ever made me second think my ideas of going out after dark, due to the incredible and unrelenting determination of the volatiles and how they want you dead. Alan Wake centrally themes itself around this idea, using light to destroy the darkness and whatever monsters may be controlling people. What happens when games like Amnesia Dark Descent forces you to use the darkness even though it has a serious effect on your character. He over time loses sanity and fears the dark himself, but you must use it to your advantage to hide from the monsters that chase you within these abandoned halls. Both the Metro and Stalker series both create a very similar and even intense feeling within darkness itself. There's a world and even lore explained to the players why these worlds should be so scary and even intimidating, and because of that and the immersive nature of those games themselves, you can't help but feel a little tingle going up your spine. But games like Metro, for example, you must use that darkness to help and go against enemies, but at the same time being warned of what else could be lurking within those shadows with you. To say you have true Nyctophobia within gaming is really a tough question. But once again, I can't gloss over gaming without talking about virtual reality, which has made it possible to really create an intense atmosphere within the dark. Virtual reality allows us as a player and even as a person to have our own sense of presence within the virtual space. Standing in a truly dark room, hall, tunnel is something that can make us all question the most simple and even unrelenting sounds that we hear from the darkness. It creates a sense of intimidation unlike any form of gaming. There are so many great VR horror games that just send chills down your spine just by standing within a small room, from Face Your Fears to Dread-Eye and even Half-Life Alyx. Alex in Half-Life Alyx herself actually suffers from Nyctophobia, with the player also both being afraid of the dark itself, creating a sense of tension for both you and her. Both we and Alex are in a moment of panic and fear, and it's up to the game to show us exactly what she's feeling by making us feel the same as well. It makes these pitch black tunnels and even head crabs seem way more scarier than they ever was before. Insomniac's VR exclusive Edge of Nowhere sees us playing as the third person perspective within VR. This allows us to be the camera and look around an alien-like and an impossible world. And in VR, to turn your head and see something hidden within the shadows looking back at you is enough to send a shiver right up your spine, and it makes you want to scream and warn at the character to get the hell out of there. Of course, this game is a Lovecraftian horror, so of course there are many things that may or even may not really be there. But of course, the issue that comes from virtual reality is very much the same as traditional gaming. We're making ourselves get ready for the worst. We're not scared of the irrational monsters that could be hiding within the dark places within VR, we're just waiting for the next thing to happen. It's difficult to truly say if this phobia can exist within gaming because it truly is just conditioned by what we've experienced in the past. It's conditioned by all the jump scares and betrayal we've had within dark moments within gaming. And I'm excited to know if there's actually any games that make you feel too frightened to go into the dark themselves, or is it, like I said, the conditioning of dark places and what to expect within the next few seconds of silence within the darkness. I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course it's glad to be back doing these phobias. I want to hopefully get one of these done at least once a month. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below, and I will see you at the next checkpoint. Goodbye, and of course don't let the bed bugs bite.